This shape or posture is called our coiling dragon. Let's take a look at it. So Melayne is going to be starting in, well, no, let's go ahead and have you start as usual in mountain pose or Tadasana. Okay, good. So guys, from our mountain pose or Tadasana, and let's actually have you start this way. Beautiful. So I want you to just take a step laterally, left or right, it doesn't matter. Beautiful. Okay. So guys, the reason I had her do that is I want you to see how you also might find your way into this particular shape, because every shape, which is interesting, every shape requires you to transition into it. Sometimes we think of shapes as these static things that somehow you magically appear in and then you are not in anymore. But the reality is there's an entrance, there's a being in the shape, and then there's an exit of the shape. And all of that is equally important. And in Budokon yoga, our focus is actually much greater on the entry and the exit than it is even on the shape itself, even though shapes matter. But what we understand about them from our perspective is that they're just very brief moments in time. They don't reflect what occurs for a person who is functionally moving across the earth. No one is ever going to be right here for any period of time or here for any period of time, but they are places you can stop. And this is what I love about asana and the postural work, foundational work. You can stop and investigate places that might be very familiar and similar to places you occupy regularly. So as an example, a lunge, well, I walk through a lunge all the time. So I might occupy this place pretty often, but I don't take the time to sit and lock into position and feel. That's fine. I get to investigate the qualities that make the lunge a lunge. But I'm never really here in a functional day. I'm moving, I'm here. So my walking does not look like a deep lunge, okay? In this case, Melayne has stepped out to the side, okay? And in stepping out to the side, she's either moving towards something or away from something. And that's what you always want to understand too about locomotion. I'm moving towards or away from something. In this particular case, can you come back into, okay, sweet, you'll be on this side. So good. So in this case, if you step toward me, beautiful, go back. You're going to take the same step, take it. Now she's moving away from me. This actually changes how she orientates herself to the space around her, because when she moves, come back, when she moves away from me, she usually is also looking at me. So it might seem logical for you for her to look that way and go that way. The only downside is she doesn't know where I am. So if she wants to, from at least a martial arts perspective, which is what we teach from, if she moves that way, she also wants to see where I am as she goes that way. So let's keep unpacking that idea. She steps that way, away from me. She steps that foot behind her front foot. And again, she's now taken 2 steps away from me. So she comes back. Good. So it's step 1, step 2, and now she's in, for us, the coiling dragon stance. And now we'll break the stance down. That was how you might enter the stance to understand it just a little bit better, at least from a combat perspective. You also might ask yourself, well, why would I do that? Well, obviously, it's clear why you would keep your eye on your opponent, but why would you step behind your other foot? Well, sometimes, depending on how your body is struck. So play this. If she gets struck this way, see how it affects the way she steps? If she gets struck this way, you see how it affects the way she steps. They weren't the same. And it was depending on the angle in which it turned her upper torso. And her upper torso is in communication with her lower trunk. So where her upper trunk goes, her lower trunk follows. So that's why, as an example, it would make sense if she's struck this way that she steps back into that position. I hope that makes sense for you. So now, let's go ahead and just make the coiling dragon shape. Beautiful. This is an arm variation. It means nothing in terms of the general shape. Her shape, if you'll notice, the focus of the shape is really from waist down. Her upper trunk has done nothing unusual. It's actually stayed in its original posture. So as she shifts and she transitions, this hasn't changed at all. The arms can change. This is a low block. This is a high block. She could even put her hands behind her back and clasp. She could take her hands overhead. In all honesty, it's really irrelevant in terms of the shape making. Practical application, this is a way for her to stop or check something coming at her. And this as well is a way for her to stop or check something coming at her. So that's why we make this particular shape, this arm variation that we create. Now, notice the depth or the height, either way, of this position. Its full height is with the legs straight. So you can see when she's at the full height of this shape, it would require that both her legs be extended. When she transitions down to the full depth, which could actually be until this knee touches the floor, that would be really, this would be what I would say is the full depth of this particular shape. But if she sits all the way down, she's in a seated twist. So if you think about it, seated twist is a variation of, and let me just work with you, here to here to here. So really, this is seated twist, standing. And seated twist is this seated. So the full depth, if you would become quote unquote a new shape, but it would be really just a simple variation. Okay, so now let's break this down from the standing position. So again, she steps into position. She begins to, and you'll notice that she brings this knee right inside the pocket of the lead knee. So why don't you turn so they can see that? So for me, I really like to get this knee right into this knee so that the legs are actually connected. Do they have to be? No, but I prefer them to be because I like the connection when they're locked in and I can hug them together and I feel a lot of strength from that. Now, distribution of weight. As an example, can you come into Warrior 1? Just step right out. Boom. Okay. Warrior 1, when it comes to distribution of weight, there's no greater amount of weight being distributed either forward or back, front leg or back leg. She doesn't have 80% here and 20% here. It's a 50-50 transition. She wants equal transition or distribution of her weight and her grounding throughout. In Coiling Dragon, this is different. I've got 80% of my weight here and 20% in the back foot. So light, in fact, I can pick this foot up by simply shifting forward, and now 100% of my weight is in the front foot. So that's how much weight distribution difference is in a stance like this that looks like 2 feet and it looks like equal distribution, but in fact, it is not at all. The front leg is taking most of the work. And again, what I love about the particular shape of this stance is it allows for me, when I do pick up this back leg, it allows for me to play with bringing it around and balancing and playing with all these interesting variations, pistol squatting concepts, foot and foot. So what I really like is that what I learned to do through this stance is to develop a very strong lead leg base position. And I also, and this makes this very martial artsy, is that this foot, you'll notice, is not straight. but rather, see, this is the difference. There's a rotation. And this is a normal rotation in the world of martial arts because we oftentimes allow our hip to be externally rotated. So if, as an example, I'm facing Melayne. Now she picks this back leg up, and then she draws her knee into a striking position, and then she extends for a front kick. Okay, hold. You'll notice that the fact that her base foot is slightly rotated, heel towards target, it allows her hip to come forward a bit. It allows her to create a little bit more of an external rotation, even so much as that she can even really rotate here. And even though you're looking at a snapshot of a moment, right? This is just the snapshot of the full, of the strike. You're catching it right at the moment of full expression. It shows you what alignment she would actually be in that full expressed moment. Different than yoga. Yoga is going to have her straight. It's going to have her leg out. It's going to have her here. Now look at her foot position. Look at her hip position. Look at her shoulder position. Now she transitions into martial arts. Notice, 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 and notice. And now look at the difference. Look at the postural difference here. And if she can, and if she's round kicking, she can rotate all the way over, and now she's completely externally rotated. So what I like about this particular stance is what it gives you from this position, how it lets you play in here, learning how to move through this position in and out of place. So it's a really powerful stance to play with. For yoga practitioners, it's going to make you more athletic the better you understand this stance, because it's very foreign to yoga. It's not in the common yoga vernacular. It's something specific to Budokon. It's a martial arts, stance, and so it's something that is specific to to the Budokon Yoga Primary Series. So, as a teacher of this work, you really need to understand how it applies martial arts and how it applies yoga. Very important and your ability to make the distinction and the connection. So, let's wrap it up. She steps into position. She expresses the arm variation. She's capable of going all the way down to position. This is a transition she can make. Yep, she can seated twist this way or seated twist this way, absolutely. She can come back up out of the position. She's still in it, and then she can step back out, or she can be in the position and twist out and simply come back into another shape or position, which we often do for your Warrior One. So guys, that is the coiling dragon.